Hello and welcome to Curriculum and Beyond, your place for smart learning and easy understanding. Whether you're a student, teacher, or researcher, this channel is for you. We explain difficult topics with real life examples and go beyond the textbooks. Welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and enjoy learning.
We are going to continue on research methods, and that is chapter 1. We will continue with the elements of chapter 1. Let's take a little recap. I told you that chapter 1 is made up of the following elements: background to the study, statement of problem, purpose of study, scope of studies. In some universities or faculties or institutions, you also have the other aspects they call scope and definition of terms. We are going to go quickly to chapter 2, which is literature review. Literature, like I said before now, is everything that is written down concerning the problem you are investigating. Now, literature exists oftentimes in two forms. They exist in print forms and in soft copies. The literature we source from the internet are in soft copies. The one we see in textbooks are in print forms. Now, the chapter 2, that is literature review, is presented under the following headings. Quite recently, opinion from experts said there is no need to write introduction in chapter 2. He said because you've already done introduction in chapter 1. So you go to the first section of literature review, which is theoretical framework. Every problem that a researcher investigates is based or backed by a problem, or every problem that a researcher investigates is backed by a theory. For example, the example I gave you earlier that has to do with effect of language on achievement in biology. A theory of measurement that supports that problem is known as item response theory. Now, in every discipline, whenever a problem is identified, there must be a theory that explains it. Now, you can get this theory by going into the literature. Either you start from the lowest level of literature, which could be a dictionary, to throw in lights. You go to your appendix in textbook, authors, sources, and then you get an insight as to what other persons or theory that explain the problem you are investigating. Now, this is the way we talk about theory, because some reports that we read, theories are usually reported poorly. What is a theory? A theory is a scientific postulate that explains a given phenomenon. It has its postulates, it has its basic assumption, and it has its limitation. And so when we talk about the item response theory in my example, it makes a postulate that performance in a test is anchored by latent trait which is possessed by an individual. And so when you construct a test, you should ensure that the test item measures only the latent trait and nothing else. Now, its basic assumption is also stated in literature, and then the limitations are also stated. Now you get the basic assumption, postulates, and limitation concerning the theory that backs up whatever problem you are investigating. Now, after you state the theory, you go on to your work to explain how it anchors, how it supports the theory, the problem you are investigating. And from there, you go on to the review of literature. You bring in variables which you have anchored in your hypothesis statement and your research question. Maybe you have hypothesized that sex is a variable, age, location are variables that will affect the relationship between your independent variable and your dependent variable. Now, in literature, you go and look at how your variables interacts with your independent variable to affect the dependent variable. The next session of literature review is the empirical studies. Empirical studies. Here you look at what other researchers have reported concerning the problem you are investigating, and you are concerned with knowing what they did and how they did it. Now, this is how you report empirical literature. Assuming you are concerned with, socioeconomic status and English language ability, all you need to do is to go to the literature, somebody who had reported on the relationship between socioeconomic status and English language ability. Maybe the person who did that is Jesse. And then you say, Jesse, in 2024, investigated the relationship between socioeconomic status and English language ability. You mentioned the population he used. He studied this problem among the Yoruba ethnic group. Then you describe the method he used. Then his outcome, what he found out in the study. And then if you have criticism about that study, you mention it briefly. That the report by Jesse had problems in the following areas. You just mention them briefly. Then you take another person who had studied the same problem. So for any given variable you are investigating, it is proper you look for at least 3 authors who have done similar work and report them. Now let me recap this because of the necessity. I say when you report literature, empirical literature review, you should mention the name of the author, the year of publication, the problem he investigated. Tell us the population that he used for the study. You tell us the sample size, and then tell us the method he used in his data collection. Tell us his findings. And then you mention some of the limitations or criticisms you think were inherent in the study he carried out. By the time you are through with that, for about 4 persons, you are through with empirical literature review.
Hi there, just in case you have any question, kindly drop them in the comment section and we will respond as soon as possible. Keep learning.
This empirical literature review is very important because you are going to use it when you are handling your discussion of findings in your own research. Now, at the end of that, you go to Appraisal of Literature. In Appraisal of Literature, you are concerned with identifying the gaps that are existing in literature that predicates the current study you are carrying out. For example, you cannot carry out a study if in literature there is a solution to the problem you are investigating. So you will tell us what related authors have found in the problem you are investigating and what they have not found. That aspect that they have not touched constitutes the gap in literature, which makes your study very, very germane. I hope you understand that. Let's recap that a little because of the importance. I said you need to establish that a gap exists in literature, which explains why you are carrying out your current study. So from the empirical literature, you've been able to tell us what the persons studied, and you also state what they have not done. So in Appraisal of Literature, you are saying that current literature reveals that this investigation has been carried out on this problem. Literature, however, did not provide information concerning the area of language and achievement in biology. This is the reason why the current study is being carried out. Then you end your literature review. Now, having done with this, we'll go to chapter 3. Now, the title of chapter 3 could vary from one faculty to the other. But in some institutions, the title of chapter 3 is Research Methods and Procedure. Here you talk about the procedure you are going to follow in carrying out the problem that you have identified. Now, the chapter 3 is made up of the following elements. We are going to describe them one after the other. The first one is design. Under the design, you tell the readers the kind of design you've adopted for this study. We mentioned some of the designs in our earlier presentation, that they can be survey design, they can be correlational design, they can be ex post facto design, and so on and so forth. Now, when you mention the design you are going to use, it is proper that you justify it. Justify your design. Survey design have been used for the current study because it is capable of carrying out the investigation among a large number of the population of persons or individuals or objects where this problem exists. You justify them. Don't quote authorities. Don't say, according to Bruno, research design is defined as this. According to Nwogo, research design is design, and you don't go into all that. Don't mention any authority. Then the next thing is the second level of chapter 3, which is known as population. Now, there is an error that is common with research reports that I have read from many students. When you go to research population, they start by telling you that the population is 1,256 students. That is an error. You don't start writing research population like that. You see, it is good for us to know the meaning of population. Population in research is a group of persons or institutions or objects to which findings in a research is generalized. So population could be SS3 students, it could be all teachers in Delta State or in Nigeria, it could be all the heads of tertiary institutions in a state. So you define your population like this, that the population of this study is all junior secondary school 3 students in Delta North Senatorial District in Nigeria. Now, you now go to the population size. According to the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education in Delta State, there are 4,500 junior secondary school 3 students in the state. Then you justify the population. You say this group of persons, the SS3 students, the JS3 students, are capable of providing information that will let us to understand if language is a factor of achievement in the subject we are investigating. I believe you followed or you have observed some mix-up, right? For those who are conversant with the educational structure in Nigeria, you might be having some confusion. So let's be consistent with the example I've given of achievement, English language and achievement in biology. And we know that biology is a subject that is taken in SS3. So we'll say our population within the realm of this example are all senior secondary school 3 students. Then you give the number that according to the Ministry of Education in Delta State, there are about X number of SS3 students in Delta State. Now, SS3 students, you are not justifying your population. SS3 students are used because they have studied biology in SS1, SS2, and SS3, and they are capable of answering questions that are used in measuring learning outcome in biology. Now, the third level or the third element of chapter 3 is your sample. Now, the sample in a research comprise the number of persons that you methodically draw from the population for the purpose of your investigation. Now, it is not possible for a researcher to use all the population in a study for the purpose of its investigation, except where such population is small, and then you said you are using a census-based approach. But many of the research we carry out, the population is usually very large, in which case you need to draw sample from the population. So you define a sample as a portion of the population that is methodically chosen or drawn for the purpose of research. There are different methods of drawing population. I will devote another slide to discussion of methods of sampling. But you now say your sample size, that the sample size for this study is maybe 1,500. You can also, it is 500 SS3 students. There are rules for your sample size, which we will also discuss in a separate presentation. Now, when you've gotten your sample size, you go to your instrument of data collection. Now, every empirical research normally would collect data for the purpose of the study. Now, data are collected using instruments. You can get data from existing records. You can get data from observation. You can get data from questionnaire. You describe the data, the instrument you want to use to collect your data. Now, if it is questionnaire, you state clearly that the data for this study is students' response to multiple choice questions in biology. That this data will be collected by using past questions in biology. The questions will cover from SS1 to SS3. You describe that. Now, when you collect data with an instrument, you must establish some psychometric qualities for the data. And that will take us to validation of your instruments. You mentioned the method you use to establish the validity for your instruments. Now, what are the methods that are used to establish validity? You can use content approach, or you use expert judgment. Oftentimes, all these can be used together. For achievement tests, for example, you could use content validity. In other instruments, like psychological instruments, other than tests. You use constructs. You use constructs in establishing the validity.
Hi there. Just in case you have any question, kindly drop them in the comment section and we will respond as soon as possible. Keep learning.
We are going to talk about how you use content validity. Why we do validation for our instrument. Now, you do validation for your instrument to enable you convince readers that the data you collect with the instrument you use for your research can support decisions and policy measures that are going to be taken from the outcome of your study. Now, there are two ways by which we establish validation for your instrument. One of them is by validity. The second one is reliability. Now, there are different ways you can establish validity for your instrument. You can use content validation. You can use expert judgment. Some will talk about face validity. That is okay. We will take it, but it's not sufficient. It is advisable that for your instrument, you said you use face validity, expert judgment, and content validity. Now, how do you establish face validity? You just ensure that the language you use in your instrument is going to be at the level of the sample or population you are using for the study. Now, for expert judgment, you are bringing experts in your field. They could be your supervisor and two other persons. Let them not be only your supervisors, but two other persons who are also in your discipline. You give it to them to look at the instrument. Assuming you are in Faculty of Education and you developed an instrument in mathematics test, it is proper that you give that instrument to lecturers in mathematics department so that they will do face validation for it. Your supervisors can as well look at the test to ensure there is face validity. Now, for the construct validation, you use what we call factor analysis. In this case, you collect data and then they use a computer software, oftentimes SPSS, to do a factor analysis so that they will see that the items you have used for your instrument, they fall within the construct of your interest. Now, the second thing you are going to look at is the reliability for your instrument. And the question is, what is reliability? Reliability is an index of the extent to which the data you've collected can stand the test of time. In other words, if you collected data today, would those data change tomorrow? Will they change next year? That is what you establish when you are trying to establish reliability for your instrument. There are different methods of establishing reliability. Those methods are principally two. One of them is a measure of stability over time. The second one is inter-item consistency. Oftentimes, students miss this. Now, let me take a little time to explain how we could use that in research. Now, when you talk about stability over time. You are saying that you give the test to the subject today, then after 2 weeks, you give the same test to the same persons that have taken the test in the first instance, and then you do a correlation statistics to see the magnitude of relationship between the same student response in the first and the second administration. If it is high enough, then you can be able to say that this data collected with the instrument can be stable over time. Now, by the time you have talked about stability over time using test retest, now you go to the other methods of establishing reliability, and that is the one we talk about, inter-item consistency. Inter-item consistency. This method is trying to establish that all the items in your questionnaire are related to one another, that they are not, far away. If they are far away, then they cannot guarantee the capacity to measure the same thing. Now, there are different methods of establishing this inter-item consistency. We use the following: use of alternative forms of the same test. Then the other one will be split half method, and then Kudari-Richardson method. Now, many of these methods I've described can be used for achievement testing. But for students in social studies, students in other aspects of psychology, such as guidance and counseling, all these methods might not be suitable. For example, when you talk about use of alternative forms of the same test, it is not easy to develop alternative forms of a test for many psychological attributes. So what is advisable to be used is Kudari-Richardson method. And there are two types: Kudari-Richardson 20 and Kudari-Richardson 21. Kudari-Richardson 20 is used mostly for achievement tests. 21 is used for those items that you collect using the Likert scale questionnaire. I think that will make our case clearer. I say, when you use achievement test where the answer is yes or no, dichotomous answers, yes or no, either the answer is A is the answer, the others are failed, you now get 1 or 0. 1 for pass, 0 for fail. We use that for achievement test. In that case, you can apply Kudari-Richardson 20. But there are other forms of questionnaire which do not yield yes or no. There is no true pass or fail in such questionnaire. Like questionnaire you use strongly agreed, agreed, disagreed, strongly disagreed, and neutral. Those ones, there is no whether the student has passed or he has failed. So the kind of Kudari-Richardson you use for the analysis is Kudari-Richardson 21. 1. It goes also like your factor analysis, and it brings out an index that shows how the items are related with one another in the instrument. That will bring us to the end of how we can establish validation for our instrument. Now, closely related to validation of your instrument, which I would also want us to discuss, is your scale of measurement. Because when you collect data using instruments that are based on scales. And the scale you use to collect your data is very, very important because it determines many other aspects of the ingredients of research. Now, we have scale of measurement. And under scale of measurement, we have 4 levels. Some other authorities, they refer to them as levels of measurement. Now, the 4 levels or scales of measurement are as follows: nominal scales, the ordinal scale, interval scale, and ratio scale. These are 4. Now, every scale of measurement has attributes, and they have 4 attributes. One of the attributes is magnitude. The second one is equal units, and the third one is absolute zero. Now, magnitude means size. 1, 2, 3. Remember, the data you collect using your instrument can yield numerical values of 1, 2, 3, 4. These are called magnitude. Now, the other one is equal units. If you take your ruler, which you use in measuring length, you see that ruler starts from 0, and then it goes to 1, goes to 2, goes to 3, and so on till 30 in cm units. Now, equal units means that the distance from 0 to 1 is the same thing as the distance from 1 to 2. Is the same thing as the distance from 1 to 3. Now, the implication is that even if the ruler is broken in pieces, you can always use it to do measurement, because at every point of the ruler there is equal interval between one measurement point and another. Then the absolute zero is a point in the measurement scale where nothing exists. Now, with this attribute of scale of measurement, we will attempt to make explanation of the scales of measurement. 1. In nominal scale, there is no magnitude. There is no equal unit. There is no absolute zero. Have you seen footballers in the field? Now, behind their jersey are written some numbers. Those numbers are nominal scale. Number 1 is the goalkeeper. Number 2, number 3, number 4, and so on till you get number 11. Now, that one is number 11 does not determine how strong he is. That one is number 1 does not also imply that he is the weakest. The numbers are just to describe them. In research, we also have similar situation. For example, when you collect data and then you have gender, 1 male, 2 female, that you use 2 for female did not imply that female are 2 times better than male. You have only used them for description of the individuals you are studying. There is no equal unit. That is the distance between 1 and 2, or between number 1, the goalkeeper, and the last person, number 12. The distance has no value. And you'll understand too that there is no place in the football field where somebody wears a jersey that has 0. There is no absolute 0. Now, when we collect data in research and we are using the nominal scale, it influences the statistics we use for the manipulation of our data. For example, under the nominal scale, the statistics you could use are usually 1, proportion, frequency count, table of frequency table, and then chi-square. For example, if you are made to count the number of students putting on different colors of shirts, you go up to the field and you begin to count. This one, 1, the other one, 2, 3. They are wearing black. Then 1, 2, 3 are wearing white. Then another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are wearing red dress. Now, when you gather all that and come to the field, those number 6 does not indicate any magnitude. And the difference between those that are wearing black color and those that are wearing white have no any value in terms of equal interval. The only statistics you can use under such condition are either you use chi-square or you use frequency count. You can also use proportion. Now, for the ordinal scale, now you see when you were in secondary school, or if you're a teacher in secondary school, at the end of exam, you give position to your pupil. Number 1, the first person is 1, the second person is 2, the third person is 3. Those kind of numbering are described as ordinal scale. 1, it has magnitude because it shows that 1 has the quality of being first, 2 has the quality of being second, but it has no equal unit, because the person who got first position may have an average of 86. The person with second position may have an average of 83. The person with third position can have an average of 70. So you see that the size, the number, they don't differ according to the position. And there is no place in the class where somebody is going to have 0 position. Everybody must be given position. Now, the statistics you can also use for such data are median, centiles, rank correlation. You can also use chi-square for them. Now, the third scale of measurement we are going to consider before we round up with this section is interval scale. These are the kind of scale we use in the result we give to you when you take test. You know, if I give you a test, in the class, and somebody can have 30%, another person can have 60%, another person can have 90%. This kind of data are described as interval data. They are obtained using interval scale. Now, they have magnitude because you can say that the person who has 60 did better than the person who has 30%. The person that has 90 in the test can be said to be stronger than the person who has either 60 or 30. Now, it has also equal units because the person that has 30 can be said to be 2 times greater than the person that the person that has 60 can be said to be once greater than the person with 30, and the person with 90 can be said to be 3 times better than the person with 60 and 30. But there is no absolute zero, because even if we give mathematics test and somebody has 0, it is not true to say that that person has no trace of mathematics ability within him. The 0 is just used, for the purpose of that, scoring. Now, that level of measurement, you can use the following statistics. You can use chi-square, you can use mean, standard deviation, you can use ANOVA, and analysis of covariance. Now, the last scale of measurement is the ratio scale. That scale is not used in education and psychology. It is only used in the pure science. That scale of measurement has magnitude, it has equal units, it has absolute 0. For example, if you are measuring weight using the scale that can measure weight, you can know that if somebody has a weight of 2 kilograms and another person has a weight of 4 kilograms, that the person that has a weight of 2 kilograms is less in weight than the person with a weight of 4 kilograms. If you bring a piece of paper that has no weight and put on the measurement scale, it shows nothing because no weight exists at that place. So that is why you said it has absolute 0. Now, you can use all types of statistics to manipulate data collected at the ratio scale level. Now, to enable us cap this discussion, because much has been involved, I want to sequentially mention that when you choose an instrument of data collection, decide on the scale you want to use in the measurement of the attribute you are interested in. Now, when you have decided on the scale, your eye should go to the kind of statistics that you could use. As you read other books, these ideas I've mentioned can become more meaningful. Much of this discussion can be found in my book, Educational Research Made Easy. If you come across it, you can read them. Other books you can also read is Educational Research by B.G. Nwogu. They will give information concerning the issues we have discussed here. You can always drop your comments on our comment section. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Curriculum and Beyond, the online campus. If you learned something today, please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell so you get notified when we have something new.